Don't call my husband. Emily Carter's voice was barely louder than the piano music drifting through the marble lobby. Another contraction seized her body. Her fingers tightened around the edge of a velvet bench. Her knees buckled. The phone slipped from her hand and struck the polished floor with a sharp, hollow crack. 17 unanswered calls glowed on the screen. The 18th had lasted only 2 seconds. Declined. Emily lowered herself to the floor because her legs could no longer hold her. Her pale blue maternity dress gathered around her ankles. A dark stain spread slowly across the expensive fabric. Her water had broken. Above her, a 40-foot digital screen illuminated the lobby in gold. On it stood her husband, Daniel Carter. Handsome, controlled, untouchable. The Millionaire hotel owner smiled beneath a crystal chandelier while hundreds of guests applauded his speech about loyalty, responsibility, and family values. Beside him stood Vanessa Blake, Daniel's public relations director. His mistress. Vanessa's manicured hand rested against his chest, as though she had every right to touch him that way. Daniel leaned toward her and whispered something that made her laugh. Then Vanessa kissed his cheek. That was the exact moment Hannah Reed raised her camera. Click. One frame. Emily on the floor. Daniel with another woman. And above them, printed in enormous white letters, family always comes first. By midnight, 20 million strangers would see that photograph. Some would call it heartbreaking. Others would call it the most devastating image of public betrayal they had ever witnessed. Daniel Carter would call it misleading. But photographs do not make choices for people. They only preserve the choices already made. Stay with me, because the camera captured only 1 second. What it exposed had been growing for years. Emily pressed both hands against her belly. Her daughter moved inside her, frantic and strong. I'm here, Sophie, she whispered. Mommy's still here. A hotel manager stood 10 feet away, frozen beneath the golden light. He was not looking at Emily. He was looking toward the elevators, waiting for instructions. A young photographer dropped her camera bag and ran across the lobby. Someone call an ambulance. Hannah shouted. No one moved. The manager touched the earpiece beneath his silver hair. Then he said 5 words that would later cost Daniel Carter his company. Take her through the back. Hannah stopped. What did you say? The service entrance, the manager replied quietly. We cannot disrupt the gala. Emily raised her head. Behind the glass walls of the ballroom, Daniel lifted a champagne glass. The crowd applauded again. He was less than 200 feet away, and he already knew she was there. 7:12 p.m. 17 unanswered calls 3 hours and 35 minutes earlier. Rain had begun tapping against the windows of the Carter penthouse. Emily stood alone in the nursery. The room smelled faintly of fresh paint and lavender detergent. White curtains framed the Manhattan skyline. A wooden crib rested beneath a mural of silver stars. Beside it sat an expensive leather rocking chair. Daniel had chosen it himself. He had promised that he would sit there every night and read stories to their daughter. The price tag was still attached. Emily folded a tiny cotton blanket and placed it inside the hospital bag near the door. 39 weeks pregnant, she moved carefully now. Every step carried weight. Every breath required thought. She had spent the afternoon checking the bag for things she had already packed twice. Baby clothes, medical documents, a phone charger, Daniel's spare shirt. She still believed he would be beside her. At 7:12, the first contraction came. It began as a tightening across her lower back, then moved around her abdomen like a steel band. Emily placed one hand against the crib and waited. The pain passed after 40 seconds. She exhaled. Not yet, she whispered. Sophie kicked. Emily smiled despite her fear. Your father has a speech tonight. Across the city, Daniel Carter stood before a wall of mirrors in the presidential suite of his newest hotel. At 37, Daniel looked exactly like the man magazines wanted him to be. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark-haired. His tailored tuxedo fit him with military precision. His jaw was clean-shaven. His expression carried the confidence of someone who had spent his entire adult life being told that success excused almost everything. Vanessa Blake stood behind him. She adjusted his bow tie with slow, intimate fingers. You look nervous, she said. I'm not nervous. You've checked your phone 6 times. Daniel glanced at the device lying on the marble counter. Emily's name appeared on the screen. He let it ring. Vanessa watched him through the mirror. Aren't you going to answer? She knows tonight matters. The call stopped. Almost immediately, another message appeared. Daniel, I think labor is starting. Please call me. Vanessa read it over his shoulder. Her lips tightened. She always does this. Daniel turned. Does what? Finds a crisis whenever you're about to achieve something important. She's 9 months pregnant. And she has doctors, drivers, staff. Vanessa smoothed the front of his jacket. You have spent 10 years building this night. The Carter Grand Hotel represented the largest project of Daniel's career. $300 million. For years of construction. International investors, politicians, celebrities, and a live announcement that his company would partner with the Haven Foundation, a charity supporting mothers and newborn children. The irony had not yet become visible. Emily called again. Daniel looked at the screen. Then he pressed decline. Back in the penthouse, Emily stared at her phone. She told herself he was on stage. She told herself he could not hear it. She told herself anything that hurt less than the truth. The second contraction came 7 minutes later. Stronger. She leaned against the nursery wall and breathed the way her doctor had taught her. In for 4. Hold. Out for 4. When it passed, Emily called Daniel's assistant. No answer. She called Vanessa. The line connected. For 1 second, Emily heard music and laughter. Then Vanessa's voice. Daniel is preparing for the announcement. I'm having contractions. You have had false labor twice this month. This is different. A pause. Then Vanessa spoke more softly. Emily, tonight is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Do not make him choose between your anxiety and his company. The sentence landed harder than the contraction. I'm not anxious, Emily said. I'm in labor. Vanessa ended the call. At 7:31, Emily sent Daniel a voice message. Her breathing was uneven. Daniel, the contractions are 6 minutes apart. I need you to call me. I don't want to do this alone. The message showed as delivered. Then read. No response came. Daniel had heard the notification while Vanessa fastened diamond earrings in the mirror. He had looked at Emily's name. He had placed the phone face down. That decision would later be described by his lawyers as confusion. There was nothing confusing about it. At 7:42, another contraction forced Emily to her knees. She remained there after the pain ended. The penthouse suddenly felt too large, too silent. Every room reflected a marriage she had worked hard to protect. The framed wedding photograph in the hallway. The charity awards bearing both their names. The dining table where Daniel had stopped eating with her months ago. The bedroom where he now slept only when the press expected him to be home. Emily had known about Vanessa for 11 weeks. Not because Daniel confessed. Because one night, Vanessa's perfume remained on his coat. A sharp, expensive scent Daniel had once said gave him headaches. Emily confronted him. Daniel denied everything. Then he called her emotional, paranoid, unstable from pregnancy hormones. After that, Emily stopped asking questions. Not because she believed him, because she was afraid of hearing the answer. The next contraction began before she could stand. Emily grabbed the hospital bag. She called a car. And as the rain intensified outside, she made one final excuse for her husband. Once he sees me, she thought, he'll come. She still believed sight could awaken a conscience. She did not yet understand that Daniel had already seen her message and chosen not to look. 7:56 p.m. The Carter Grand Hotel rose above the city like a monument to wealth. Black cars lined the entrance. Camera flashes ignited beneath the glass canopy. Women in designer gowns stepped onto a red carpet while reporters called their names. Emily's hired car stopped behind a row of limousines. The driver turned. Ma'am, should I take you to a hospital? Emily gripped the door handle through another contraction. My husband is inside. The driver studied her face. Does he know you're coming? He knows I'm in labor. The driver said nothing. That silence contained more judgment than any accusation could have. Emily stepped into the rain. Her cream coat did not close over her stomach. Water darkened her hair as she crossed the pavement. At the entrance, a young security guard moved to stop her. Then he recognized her. Mrs. Carter? I need Daniel. The guard looked toward the lobby manager. Emily followed his eyes. The manager approached with a practiced smile. Mrs. Carter, we were not expecting you tonight. I called my husband 17 times. Yes, ma'am. I'm in labor. His smile disappeared. For one moment, real concern crossed his face. Then the earpiece beneath his hair crackled. Emily heard a muffled voice. The manager turned slightly away. Yes, sir. She is here. Emily's heartbeat accelerated. Is that Daniel? The manager did not answer. On the top floor, Daniel stood behind a velvet curtain while his assistant held a phone near his ear. "Your wife is downstairs," the assistant said. "Security says she appears to be in active labor." Daniel's face changed. Only slightly. Vanessa noticed. "Tell them to call her doctor," he said. "She is asking for you." Daniel glanced toward the stage. A host was introducing him. The applause had already begun. Vanessa placed a hand on his arm. "If you leave now, every camera in that ballroom will follow you." "My wife is in labor." "Your wife came here deliberately." Daniel looked at her. Vanessa lowered her voice. "She could have gone directly to the hospital. She chose your gala because she knew it would force you to leave." The assistant waited. "What should I tell security?" he asked. Daniel stared at the glowing elevator button across the corridor. 20 seconds. That was all it would take to reach the lobby. He could walk through the doors. He could take Emily's hand. He could become the man his public image claimed he was. Instead, Daniel took the assistant's phone. "Do not let her upstairs," he said. "Keep this quiet." The assistant hesitated. "Sir, handle it." Daniel ended the call. Then he stepped onto the stage. The ballroom erupted. Below him, Emily watched the giant screen as her husband approached the podium. The audience rose to its feet. Daniel smiled with controlled humility. "Family," he began, "is the foundation of every meaningful legacy." Emily stared upward. The words echoed through the lobby speakers. "Success means nothing unless we use it to protect the people who depend on us." Another contraction bent her forward. The manager reached toward her, but she pulled away. "Take me to him." "I'm afraid I cannot do that. Daniel knows I'm here." The manager looked down. That was the answer. Emily's eyes filled, but she refused to let the tears fall. On the screen, Vanessa stood near the stage beneath a banner for the Haven Foundation, a charity created to protect vulnerable mothers. Daniel thanked her publicly. "Vanessa has been the heart of this campaign," he said. Vanessa pressed one hand against her chest and smiled. Emily saw the expression clearly. It was not the smile of an employee receiving praise. It was the smile of a woman who believed the wife had already been removed. Then Emily felt a warm rush between her legs. She looked down. Her water spread across the polished floor. The manager went pale. Emily whispered, "Call an ambulance." He touched his earpiece again. Upstairs, Daniel received another message. Her water broke. Ambulance requested. He read it. Vanessa leaned close. "If you leave now, you explain us tonight." Daniel's jaw tightened. The elevator doors opened beside him. For one suspended second, he moved toward them. The assistant exhaled in relief. Then Daniel reached forward and pressed the button to close the doors. The elevator door. Emily heard the elevator arrive. The polished doors slid open across the lobby. She looked up. No one stepped out. For a heartbeat, hope moved through her. Daniel was coming. He had changed his mind. He would appear in the doorway, cross the marble floor, and tell her that everything else could wait. The doors began to close. Empty. Emily watched her reflection disappear between them. Something inside her changed. Not dramatically. There was no scream. No sudden speech. Only a quiet understanding. Daniel had not failed to receive the message. He had answered it. The answer was no. The next contraction came less than 3 minutes later. Emily gripped the side of a column. The baby pressed downward with terrifying force. A hotel guest stopped nearby. "Is she all right?" The manager stepped between them. "Everything is under control." Emily laughed once. It was a small, broken sound. Nothing was under control. The music upstairs became louder. A live orchestra played beneath the applause. Daniel was announcing a $10 million donation to maternal health programs. Emily bent over and tried to breathe. "Mrs. Carter," the manager whispered, "we can move you to a private suite while transportation is arranged." "I need an ambulance." "It is being handled." "When did you call?" He did not answer. Emily looked toward the security desk. The telephone remained untouched. "You didn't call." The manager lowered his voice. "Mr. Carter requested discretion. I am having a baby." "I understand." "No. You understand his instructions." A pair of security officers approached. They avoided Emily's eyes. The manager gestured toward a corridor behind the reception desk. "We will take you through the service entrance." Emily straightened as much as she could. "Why?" "There are reporters outside." The truth became clear. They were not trying to protect her privacy. They were protecting Daniel's photographs. A woman giving birth on the hotel floor would damage the evening. A wife abandoned by the man preaching family values would destroy it. Emily placed both hands over her stomach. Sophie moved again. The fear in Emily's chest sharpened into focus. For months, she had protected Daniel's reputation. She had smiled at galas after crying in bathrooms. She had defended his late nights. She had ignored the perfume. She had worn long sleeves when stress made her scratch her own arms raw. She had told friends that marriage required patience. But Sophie was not a public relations problem. Sophie was not an inconvenience. Sophie was not something to move through a back hallway. No, Emily said. The manager blinked. We need to clear this area. No, Mrs. Carter. I'm not going anywhere until someone calls an ambulance. One of the guards took another step. Emily's knees gave way. She caught herself against the bench, but the movement sent a bolt of pain through her body. A cry escaped her. That was when Hannah Reed heard her. Hannah had been hired to photograph the gala. At 26, she had worked enough luxury events to recognize the machinery behind them. The controlled lighting. The rehearsed laughter. The staff, trained to make discomfort invisible. She had come downstairs to replace a memory card. Instead, she found a pregnant woman being surrounded by security. Hannah dropped her equipment bag. Step away from her. The manager turned. This is a private matter. A medical emergency is not a private matter. She is being assisted. No, she is being hidden. Hannah ran to Emily and knelt beside her. My name is Hannah. I'm calling an ambulance. The manager reached for her phone. You cannot film here. I'm not filming. Hannah looked at the guards. But if anyone touches her, I will. She dialed emergency services. The operator answered. As Hannah gave the address, the giant screen above them switched camera angles. Daniel stood beside Vanessa. The host announced them as the leadership team behind the new charity campaign. Vanessa stepped closer to Daniel. Too close. Her hand slid over his lapel. Then she kissed his cheek. Emily saw it. Her face did not collapse. It became still. Hannah turned at the same moment. Years of instinct took over. She raised the camera hanging from her shoulder. Click. The flash reflected across the marble. Then Hannah lowered the camera and took Emily's hand. Help is coming. Behind them, the manager spoke urgently into his earpiece. Upstairs, Daniel's assistant received a message. A photographer saw everything. For the first time that night, Daniel looked afraid. 8:19 p.m. One frame, 3 betrayals. The ambulance sirens were still several blocks away. Emily's contractions were now 2 minutes apart. Hannah removed her black blazer and folded it beneath Emily's head. Look at me, she said. Not the screen. Look at me. Emily tried, but the ballroom remained visible above Hannah's shoulder. Daniel had moved away from Vanessa. Too late. The kiss had happened. The photograph existed. The choice had been preserved. Is that your husband? Hannah asked. Emily nodded. Hannah's expression tightened. He knows you're here? Yes. The answer changed the air between them. Hannah had assumed confusion. A missed call. A broken chain of communication. But Emily's voice left no room for those comforts. He knows. A waiter approached with a stack of clean towels. The manager snapped. Return to your station. The waiter ignored him. He knelt and placed the towels beside Hannah. My wife had our son 6 months ago, he said. Tell me what you need. That small act of defiance spread. A receptionist brought water. A guest moved a bench to block the cameras outside. A woman in a red gown took off her shawl and covered Emily's legs. Humanity returned to the lobby one person at a time. Not because Daniel instructed it. Because ordinary people decided his instructions were wrong. The security guard stepped back. The manager remained frozen beneath the weight of the order he had obeyed. Hannah's camera lay on the floor beside her. The display still showed the photograph. Emily noticed it. Did you take that? Hannah followed her gaze. Yes. Delete it. Hannah immediately reached for the camera. Emily closed her eyes as another contraction hit. No, she gasped. Wait. Hannah stopped. The pain rose. Emily breathed through it, gripping Hannah's hand hard enough to whiten both their knuckles. When it passed, she looked again at the image. From a technical perspective, the photograph was almost perfect. Emily occupied the foreground, her body folded protectively around her unborn child. Daniel stood in the background behind glass. Vanessa's lips touched his cheek. The digital banner hung above them. Family always comes first. The clock in the lobby read 8:19. Every contradiction existed in one frame. I don't know what to do with it, Emily whispered. You don't have to decide now, Hannah said. Can they erase it? Not from my camera. Can they say I wasn't here? They can say anything. Emily looked at her husband's image. That's what he does. The sirens grew louder. The lobby doors opened, and two paramedics rushed inside with a stretcher. Daniel's security director moved to intercept them. Hannah stood. She is over here. The manager whispered, use the service corridor. One paramedic looked at him as though he had spoken another language. She is in active labor. We use the fastest route. The stretcher rolled across the marble. Guests moved aside. Phones appeared now. Not one. Dozens. Daniel's attempt to hide the scene had created a spectacle larger than the emergency itself. As paramedics lifted Emily, she cried out and clutched her stomach. One of them checked the monitor. Fetal heart rate is dropping. Hannah's blood went cold. What does that mean? Emily asked. It may be temporary, the paramedic said. We need to move. The stretcher passed beneath the giant screen. Daniel was still speaking. His voice filled the lobby. A leader is defined by the people he refuses to abandon. The paramedic looked up, then down at Emily. No one said anything. No one needed to. Outside, rain struck the ambulance roof like thrown gravel. Before the doors closed, Emily reached for Hannah. The photograph. I have it. Don't publish it. I won't. Emily searched her face. Unless they lie. Hannah nodded. Unless they lie. The doors slammed shut. The ambulance pulled away. Upstairs, Vanessa entered the private preparation room and found Daniel staring at his phone. What happened? A photographer took a picture. Of what? Daniel did not answer. Vanessa took the phone from his hand. A staff member had sent a blurry image from the lobby. Emily on the stretcher. Vanessa visible on the screen. Daniel standing beside her. For the first time, Vanessa's confidence cracked. Stop them from posting it. Daniel looked toward his communications director. Release a statement. What kind of statement? Daniel's gaze hardened. Say Emily experienced discomfort at home. Say she was taken safely to the hospital before the gala began. His assistant stared at him. But she was here. Daniel turned. Was that a question? The assistant looked away. Vanessa exhaled. Good. Control the timeline. At 8:31, Carter Hospitality issued its first public statement. It contained 17 words. Every one of them was false. 8:42 p.m. No emergency contact inside the ambulance. The city became streaks of white and red. Emily stared at the ceiling. The vehicle swayed around corners. Medical equipment rattled in metal drawers. A monitor produced quick electronic beats beside her. Too quick, then too slow. A paramedic placed an oxygen mask over her face. Emily, I need you to stay with me. I'm awake. I know. Keep breathing. Another contraction tore through her. She screamed into the mask. When it ended, the paramedic asked, Who is your emergency contact? Emily reached weakly for her phone. Daniel Carter remained listed at the top. Husband. Primary contact. She stared at his name. Years of marriage reduced to a line of text. The first time she met Daniel, he had been standing alone at a museum fundraiser. He was not yet famous. Not yet worth $80 million. He had spilled sparkling water on her dress and apologized for 10 straight minutes. He made her laugh. Later, when her freelance photography work barely paid rent, Daniel sat with her in tiny coffee shops and talked about the hotels he would build. Emily believed in him before investors did. She designed his first website, photographed his first property, edited his speeches, sold her grandmother's jewelry when payroll was short. Daniel called her his compass. Somewhere along the way, success taught him to resent the person who remembered where he began. Emily pressed edit. She deleted Daniel's name. For the replacement contact, she entered Dr. Rachel Morgan. Rachel had been Emily's obstetrician for 7 months. She had noticed bruises beneath Emily's eyes. Not physical bruises. The kind exhaustion leaves when a person is carrying fear in addition to a child. During the last appointment, Rachel had asked whether Emily felt safe at home. Emily said yes. Rachel did not believe her. She wrote her private number on the back of a prescription card. Call me, she said, even if all you need is someone to answer. Now Emily used it. At St. Catherine's Hospital, the ambulance doors opened into harsh white light. Rachel was waiting. She wore blue scrubs beneath a winter coat, her blonde hair tied back hastily. I came as soon as they called. Emily began to cry, not because she was afraid, because someone had come. Rachel took her hand as the stretcher moved through the corridor. I'm here now. The examination happened quickly. Blood pressure dangerously high. Fetal heart rate unstable. Labor progressing too fast. Rachel's expression remained calm, but Emily saw the urgency beneath it. We may need an emergency procedure. Is Sophie okay? She is under stress. Tell me the truth. Rachel met her eyes. We need to deliver her soon. A nurse placed consent forms in Emily's hands. We need your signature before we proceed. He isn't coming. The nurse glanced at Rachel. Rachel took the clipboard. Emily can sign for herself. Her hand shook as she wrote her name. Not Mrs. Daniel Carter. Emily Carter. The letters were uneven but legible. As staff prepared the operating room, Hannah arrived in the maternity wing. Rainwater clung to her coat. Her camera bag remained strapped across her chest. A nurse tried to stop her. Emily called from the bed. She's with me. Hannah approached slowly. I haven't shared anything. Show me. She opened the photograph. Emily studied it beneath the hospital's fluorescent light. Without the noise of the gala, the image looked even more brutal. Not because Daniel appeared violent. He did not. He appeared comfortable. That was worse. His wife was on the floor, and he was comfortable. Emily's phone vibrated. A news alert appeared. Carter Hospitality clarifies false rumors regarding CEO's wife. Emily opened the company's statement. It claimed she had experienced mild discomfort at home. It claimed Daniel had arranged immediate private medical care. It claimed social media reports placing her at the hotel were fabricated by individuals seeking attention. At the bottom was a quotation attributed to Daniel. My wife and child remain my highest priority. Emily read it twice. Hannah watched her face change. He lied, Emily said. Yes. He knew someone photographed us. Yes. He thinks he can erase me. Rachel entered. We need to take you in. Emily handed the phone to Hannah. Her eyes were clear now. Post the picture. Hannah hesitated. Are you sure? Crop me carefully. Don't show anything Sophie could see one day and feel ashamed of. I can do that. Keep the clock. Hannah nodded. And the words above him. Hannah looked at the banner in the image. Family always comes first. I'll keep them. Orderlies unlocked the wheels of Emily's bed. As they pushed her toward the operating room, Hannah remained in the corridor. She opened her laptop, attached the photograph, then wrote one sentence. This woman was not at home. She was in labor on the floor beneath her husband's gala while hotel staff were ordered to move her out of sight. At 9:21 p.m. Hannah Reid pressed publish. Part 7, 9:21 p.m. The internet becomes the jury. The photograph reached 10,000 views in 4 minutes. At first, people thought it was staged. The composition seemed too perfect. A pregnant woman in distress. A millionaire beside another woman. A corporate slogan hanging above them like an accusation. Then witnesses began to speak. A guest uploaded a 12-second video showing Emily being placed on the stretcher beneath the ballroom screen. A waiter posted the time-stamped order telling staff not to contact emergency services without management approval. The hired driver shared his trip receipt showing that Emily arrived at the hotel at 7:56. The emergency dispatch recording confirmed the first ambulance call came from Hannah, not the hotel. By 9:29, the photograph had passed 500,000 views. By 9:34, it reached 1 million. Newsrooms began calling. The Haven Foundation removed Daniel's name from its website. A maternity care organization reposted the image with a single question. How many women are called dramatic before someone finally believes their pain? Inside the Carter Grand Ballroom, guests checked their phones beneath the tables. The applause had stopped. Daniel stood near the stage while his communications team formed a circle around him. Call the platforms, he said. We cannot remove it. The communications director replied. Then claim it is manipulated. Other videos confirm the scene. Those can be manipulated too. Vanessa stared at the photograph. Her face occupied only a small portion of the frame, but everyone recognized her. Reporters were already identifying her as Daniel's rumored mistress. Her name trended beside Emily's. This is Hannah Reid, Vanessa said. She photographed my charity campaign last year. I can call her. She won't answer you. Vanessa turned on Daniel. You let Emily come here. I told security to handle it. You should have made sure she went home. The assistant nearest them looked up. Daniel's expression sharpened. Everyone out. The staff withdrew. Only Vanessa remained. She lowered her voice. You need Emily to deny this. She's in the hospital. Then go. Daniel stared at her. Minutes earlier, Vanessa had warned him not to leave. Now public opinion had reversed her calculation. Daniel saw it. So now I should go? Do you want to lose the company? The ballroom doors opened. A board member entered carrying his phone. Thomas Bennett had invested in Daniel's first hotel 15 years earlier. He was 71 and rarely raised his voice. Tonight, he did not need to. Did you know she was downstairs? Daniel straightened. Thomas, the photograph is misleading. That was not my question. There was confusion. Did you know? Daniel's silence answered. Thomas looked at Vanessa. And you? Vanessa folded her arms. I believed Emily was experiencing false labor. Thomas's eyes moved between them. Her child is being delivered tonight. No one spoke. He turned back to Daniel. The board is meeting at 8 tomorrow morning. That is unnecessary. It became necessary when you issued a fraudulent statement using company resources. Daniel stepped closer. I built this company. Thomas looked at the screen where the photograph continued to spread. Then you should have known how quickly one rotten foundation can bring down an entire building. He walked away. At the hospital, Emily knew nothing about the numbers. The operating room lights burned above her. Machines beeped. Rachel's voice remained steady behind a surgical mask. Sophie's heart rate is dropping again. Emily gripped the nurse's hand. Save her. We are going to do everything possible. Don't tell me everything. Tell me she will live. Rachel paused. Then she leaned close. Your daughter is fighting. Emily closed her eyes. Then help me fight with her. Outside, Hannah sat in the corridor, watching the image spread. 10 million views. 20 million. Messages arrived from women around the world. Women whose husbands had left during miscarriages. Women who drove themselves to hospitals. Women whose pain had been called inconvenient. Women who had learned that abandonment could happen even while wearing a wedding ring. Hannah stopped reading. This was not entertainment anymore. It was testimony. A hotel employee contacted her through an encrypted account. I have the message from Daniel telling us not to let her upstairs. Hannah responded. Do not send it to me. Send it to the board and an attorney. Protect yourself. Minutes later, another message appeared. A screenshot. Daniel's number. The time. The instruction. Do not let her upstairs. Keep this quiet. The final excuse disappeared. Daniel had known. Daniel had ordered it. Daniel had lied afterward. At 10:11, the ballroom emptied through side exits. Sponsors removed their logos from the stage. The orchestra stopped playing. Workers began taking down the banner. Family always comes first. The words peeled away one letter at a time. Daniel stood alone beneath them. His phone rang. The hospital. For the first time that night, he answered. Mr. Carter, a nurse said. Your daughter has been born. Daniel closed his eyes. Is my wife conscious? Yes. Are there reporters there? The nurse went silent. Daniel did not realize what he had revealed. But the nurse did. 10:32 p.m. He came for the cameras. Sophie Carter entered the world at 10:18 p.m. She did not cry immediately. For 3 terrible seconds, the room contained only machines and held breath. Then a thin sound rose beneath the surgical lights. Small, angry, alive. Emily sobbed. Rachel lifted the baby just high enough for her to see. She's here. Sophie's face was red and wrinkled. Dark hair lay against her tiny head. To Emily, she was the most beautiful thing that had ever existed. Can I touch her? A nurse brought Sophie close. Emily pressed her lips to her daughter's forehead. The world narrowed. No hotel. No photograph. No Daniel. Only the warm weight of Sophie's body and the knowledge that they had survived each other's worst night. Daniel arrived 14 minutes later. Not alone. His attorney walked beside him. Behind them came the head of corporate communications carrying a garment bag. 2 members of hospital security blocked the camera crew at the entrance. Daniel looked toward the reporters gathered outside. Is there another way into the maternity wing? His attorney answered quietly. This is the private entrance. Then why are they here? Because the photograph has reached every major news network. A nurse approached. Only immediate family may enter. I'm her husband. The nurse studied him. She had heard his phone call. You may enter alone. Daniel handed his coat to the attorney. The communications director stopped him. Do not discuss the affair. Do not admit prior knowledge. Focus on the baby. Daniel nodded. He took a bouquet of white roses from an assistant. Then he entered Emily's room. The lights were dim. Sophie slept in a clear hospital bassinet. Emily lay against the pillows, pale with exhaustion. Daniel stopped inside the doorway. For a moment, the confidence left his face. He looked at the woman he had married. Then at the daughter he had almost refused to meet. Emily. She did not answer. He placed the flowers on a table. I came as soon as I could. Emily looked at the clock. 10:32. You were 200 feet away. Daniel's jaw tightened. The situation at the hotel was complicated. My labor was not. I was receiving conflicting information. You read my message. Vanessa said. Emily's eyes lifted. Daniel stopped. He had given Vanessa's name before Emily mentioned her. The room became very quiet. Sophie made a small sound in the bassinet. Daniel glanced toward her. Then his phone vibrated. His eyes moved down automatically. Emily saw it. Even now, even here, a screen came first. Daniel silenced the phone. The company is under attack, he said. The photograph has created a false impression. It showed me on the floor. It did not show the context. What context would help you? Daniel set his shoulders. You came to the gala instead of going to the hospital. I came because my husband would not answer. You knew tonight was important. Emily stared at him. There it was. The belief beneath every excuse. His night had been important. Her pain had not. Daniel pulled a chair closer. We need to make a statement together. Emily almost smiled. Together? A photograph from this room would stop the speculation. You, me, the baby. We explained that emotions were high and communication failed. Communication did not fail. Emily, I communicated 17 times. Daniel's voice lowered. Do you understand what is happening to the company? Yes. Employees could lose their jobs. You ordered employees not to help me. That is not what happened. Hannah has the message. Daniel went still. Emily continued. The board has it too. His face lost color. For the first time, he looked towards Sophie without calculation. Not with love. With the awareness that the child's birth had become evidence. Emily reached for her phone. I left you one last message before I came to the hotel. Daniel rubbed his forehead. This is not the time. It is the only time you will hear it. She pressed play. Her own voice filled the room. Weak. Breathless. Afraid. Daniel, the contractions are 6 minutes apart. I need you to call me. I don't want to do this alone. A pause. Then the message continued. I am not asking you to choose me. I am asking you to come meet your daughter. The recording ended. The silence afterward felt heavier than sound. Daniel looked at the floor. I made a mistake. Emily studied him. Not long ago, those words would have been enough to awaken hope. Tonight, they sounded like strategy. A mistake is taking the wrong exit, she said. You made a choice every time the phone rang. I can fix this. No, for Sophie's sake. Do not use her name to protect yourself. Daniel's expression hardened. You cannot keep my daughter from me. I am not discussing custody tonight. You need to think clearly. Emily reached for her left hand. Her fingers were swollen from pregnancy, but the wedding ring slid free with effort. She held it for a moment. The diamond caught the dim hospital light. Daniel had given it to her before the money. Before Vanessa. Before he learned to confuse admiration with love. Emily placed the ring on top of the white roses. I have never thought more clearly. Daniel stared at it. Outside the door, reporters shouted questions down the corridor. Inside, Sophie began to wake. Emily turned toward her daughter. Daniel remained standing beside the flowers. He had arrived carrying the symbols of apology, but he had brought no remorse. A nurse opened the door. Mrs. Carter needs rest. Daniel did not move. Emily lifted Sophie into her arms. You heard her first cry through a phone call, she said quietly. That is the distance you chose. The nurse held the door. Daniel walked out. He expected Emily to call him back. She did not. The door closed with a soft click. Not a slam. Not a spectacle. Just an ending. 1 year later, the investigation lasted 6 weeks. The evidence was simple. Daniel received Emily's messages. He knew she was in labor. He instructed staff not to let her upstairs. Hotel management delayed calling emergency services. Then Carter Hospitality issued a statement Daniel knew was false. The board removed him as chief executive. Not because the internet was angry. Because his actions exposed the company to criminal liability, investor lawsuits, and evidence tampering allegations. Vanessa resigned 3 days later. A leaked audio recording revealed that she had called Emily's labor a manipulation tactic and urged Daniel to remain on stage. For months, Vanessa insisted she had been misunderstood. The public moved on. Consequences did not. Daniel retained a portion of his fortune, but he lost what he valued more than money. Control. Every interview about his career now began with the photograph. Every speech about leadership carried the shadow of the elevator doors closing. Emily filed for divorce. She did not seek revenge beyond what the law allowed. She requested a fair division of assets, full disclosure of marital finances, and a custody arrangement based on Sophie's welfare. Daniel's attorneys called her demands aggressive. Emily's attorney called them documented. The divorce settled before trial. A year after Sophie's birth, Emily stood inside a renovated community center in Brooklyn. Sunlight poured through tall windows. White chairs faced a small stage. On the wall hung a new sign. No mother waits alone. The program connected pregnant women without reliable support systems to train volunteers, nurses, transportation services, and emergency legal assistance. Emily funded the first year with her settlement. Hannah Reed became the project's visual director. Rachel Morgan led its medical advisory board. The waiter who ignored the hotel manager's order volunteered at weekend events. Even the driver who brought Emily to the gala donated free rides twice a month. No billionaires rescued Emily. Ordinary people simply refused to look away. That was enough. Before the opening ceremony, Hannah found Emily near a window. Sophie rested against her mother's shoulder. At 1 year old, she had Emily's green eyes and Daniel's dark hair. She reached toward the sunlight with both hands. "Ready?" Hannah asked. Emily smiled. "For the speech? For the photograph?" Emily glanced across the room. Rows of women stood together. Some held babies. Some were still pregnant. Some had arrived alone and discovered that alone did not have to mean abandoned. Near the back wall sat an empty chair. It had been placed there for Daniel. He had requested an invitation through his attorney, then canceled after learning reporters would attend. A year earlier, Emily would have watched the door. She would have checked her phone. She would have searched for reasons to explain his absence. Today, she did none of those things. Hannah lifted the camera. "Look this way." Emily held Sophie closer. The baby laughed. Click. The second photograph captured no betrayal. No marble floor. No expensive slogan. Only a mother standing in warm morning light, surrounded by people who had chosen to stay. Later, reporters asked Emily whether the viral image had destroyed her marriage. She looked towards Sophie before answering. "No," she said. "The photograph did not destroy anything." The room became still. It only showed me what was already gone. That evening, after the last guest left, Emily walked through the quiet hall with Sophie asleep against her chest. She passed the empty chair. For a moment, her hand rested on its wooden back. Then she moved it against the wall, clearing the aisle for tomorrow's visitors. Some men lose companies. Some lose fortunes. Others lose the woman who once waited for them to become worthy of the love they had already been given. Daniel Carter lost all three. But Emily did not win because he fell. She won because when the doors closed, she stopped begging him to open them and built a new entrance for every woman still waiting outside.